discussion or questions? And I'm sure people will still, and I think there were 7 who signed up. We'll see. I'm used to giving this even to one person, so everybody is so busy. But some of the things that we've done at Birchwood are really meaningful, and so we felt it's worth sharing them to take home as a part of it. So the title of all of these is Teaching Children How to Become a Great Person. We talk about that all the time with the kids, being a great person. And there's one particular topic is good morning, how are you?
How are you?
Would you mind introducing yourself to everybody?
Hi, my name is Saima. I'm Hadi's mom. Hadi's in 4th grade.
And Arisha's a freshman.
Graduated, yeah. She's a freshman at Cafe Brown. She graduated last year. We love the school. Been here forever.
Yeah. She's a top 10 writer in the state too.
Yeah, top 10 writer in the state. Science Olympiad, and then a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Scholastic.
Yeah.
History Day.
Yeah, you're allowed to brag at home. It's okay.
Yeah, she was a History Day. I think she was just first place in district, and I don't even remember now. She likes so many things in district and stuff.
Just a lot of opportunities. So that's the content. We talk to the children all the time about aspiring to be a great person. I'll explain a little bit what that is. And then there's lots of pieces. And this one we're talking about today is agency. Self-reliance, self-responsibility, that whole picture that I'm sure if you've got little ones you're struggling with. Even if you've got older ones you're struggling with, their sense of agency. So whenever we do something at Birchwood, we have sort of decisions or practices, it's always in the framework of some broader principle that's relatively true. In other words, I'm not going to tell you how to do it, but I will give you things that are true about children and about how children grow and about how they mature. Then you've got you've got your family life, you've got the children, they're all different. And it's only understanding the bigger picture of principles, then you say, okay, now what fits me? How can I carry this out? More so than a particular way to do something. I do the same thing with my faculty. We have about 5 or 6 general principles. What is great education? And now, what are you going to do with your 3rd grade social studies class? It still comes down to the individual, wrestling with the things that are, I like to use the word true, but I don't want to over-exaggerate that, but principles that are generally acceptable. And they're acceptable by science. There's a lot of validation for, oh, hi, come on in. 3 things for us to establish whether it's, quote, true. Science is on our side. And I just realized I forgot. I had 6 or 7 books I was going to introduce you to in case you're a reader. I forgot to bring them. I'll list them. And the next, maybe the next clipboard. History. You know, this isn't the first generation of children who've ever been raised. There's a lot of truth in your culture. There's truth in societies. And so to identify those things that just time has proved, this is how you raise kids. And they're universal. And the article in the clipboard I did this month is on natural virtues. Natural meaning I don't need to argue with you about these virtues. In other words, you have to set goals in life. Well, you're never going to run into somebody who'll say, oh no, I don't believe in setting goals. I believe in just letting things happen as they will. You know, maybe somebody who's had a bad personal history thinks that way, but you know, there are things that you agree with. And then thirdly, as far as them working, I've been at this 50 years, and I still am in the classroom because one of our teachers got sick. I'm back in the 2nd grade and 4th grade classroom till the end of the year, till I can sort out things. So I'm with the kids all the time. So then I can say, all right, I read about this in recent studies, and I can say, validate it. Yep, I've seen this in the past. Or I can say, now that is a bunch of baloney. If you'd like to come and sit with me in a 3rd grade class, I'll show you why it's baloney. So those 3 things working. So what I present today sort of has that kind of background of becoming great. So a couple points on this agency thing. Number 1, when you're trying to cultivate agency in children, it is so important to realize they hunger to be successful, to achieve, to grow. It's like, I love the illustration. I've got tons and tons of grandkids. Even they're grown up now. But when they were little, I used to love it when you throw them a ball and they catch it. I did it! I did it! You know, or they'll say, no, Mommy, I'll do it. And then, I did it. That is a core drive in a human being. Be competent, to want to be able to get something done. That's in them. And why do I bring that up? Because we're going to talk about agency. And it looks like sometimes they don't want to do anything. Well, that part is there, and I'll talk about that a little bit. But why is that so important? Because you want to keep tapping into that. Last week I talked a little bit about the success cycle, but that's what it's doing when we're teaching, is trying to create that again and again. Touching that, I did it, I did it, I did it. And then pretty soon you have a whole outlook toward life. You've got experiences of being successful, so you want to try things, and you're not afraid. And so you'll walk into hard situations. So that's the first part. But when you're going to grow, meaning you're going to become a better soccer player or a better violinist or a better math student, there is always a struggle and an unwillingness to do what you have to do to get better. You know, I usually when I talk to the children about this, I'll always use sports because they're all playing some kind of sport. And I'll say, well, what does your basketball coach make you do? Does he make you run at the end of practice, back and forth? Yeah, and I hate that. Well, okay, you're gonna keep finding coaches who make you do that because you got to get better. When you get better, you have to build up your cardio, and then you can last longer in the game. So this part is really critical. That here they are wanting to grow and become better, and yet the moment they really want to get better, they run into a wall that is hard and it's difficult and it's a struggle for them. That's probably where you find yourself most of the time, whether it's homework or whatever jobs you might have at home. You know, they have their family chores or whatever. They don't want to do it. And I can't tell you how important that is to understand that both of those things are going on in them all the time. I've got an older student right now, transferred in, you know, just doesn't have the background kids have in Birchwood. That's part of the early start. You begin early and build these habits over time. Well, this one person didn't. Great kid, really a great kid, but boy, does not have any of these habits at all. So to walk this line between you are going to do it and I'm going to be caring and loving and make sure you do it. Those two things. And this is the, maybe you call it the third or the fourth part. Think about yourself when you enter a challenge. You want to grow in another course or something you've got to do to move up in your profession, something that you've got to do. You have a story. You're all accomplished people. So when you approach it, you know, this is going to take time. I got to budget my time. I have to organize my life a little bit better. I'm going to have to this. You have got a conversation. You have a story in your life. And that story has allowed you to keep moving forward. You know, maybe sometime you'll say, I'm old enough, that's all, I'm not going to do anymore. But when you're trying to grow as a human being, and that's a part of it too, when you want to become more passionate, or you want to mend problems in your family. You know, we all have problems in our families, our extended family. We insulted our brother or hurt our sister, something, and you want to make it up. Well, you know that's not going to be that easy. But you'll do it if you have stories. If you have friends who made up with their relatives after a bad situation. Or you have stories about people who took a course in the evening while they're taking care of their family, while they're working on their job, and they also take a course. You got a story. And so they say, I don't like this, I don't like the time commitment, but I'm going to do it. That's your story. Little children don't have those stories. All they have is, I don't like this. I don't want to do this. And so that's part of the work then, is to begin to help them learn stories about how you face life. And that comes from mom and dad. It comes at school. Yesterday, I've got a very naughty group of 7th graders, okay? And they're at the point where they're still in the mindset, I did the work. What else do you want from me? I'd like you to understand what you did. How about that? So I didn't even have math yesterday. I took them to another room, and then we just talked about how do you become a young man or young woman going to top high school and a top college. And then I teased them a lot. You know, I told them, what's wrong with you? What's wrong? I said to some of the girls, I said, you care too much about how you look. How about just in school? You can, when you go home, you can look beautiful. Don't worry about school. Just come here to study your math. Anyway, this kind of conversation, you know, talking with them, where I'm holding your feet to the fire. You are going to get better in math, and you're going to do the way I told you to do it. But at the same time, I know you don't want to. I know you don't have enough experience of success, so I'm going to be right next to you, guiding you, talking to you, encouraging you, telling you, no, back to work, don't quit. But can you see the whole training of their story is because mom or dad or the teachers are sitting with them, telling them that story. And this is really the hard part about creating agency. So often I'll tell parents to cultivate agency in children, self-agency in children. Number one, you're the one who's got to pay the biggest price because they don't have the willpower, they don't have the strength, they don't have the intellectual firepower to understand how to push through. Now, and this is where I come back to this line that you're walking. You're both firm and you're loving at the same time. How do you do that? I have no idea. Only you're going to figure that out with your family. How far you can push your little boy or little girl, and when you have to pull back. You know, so oftentimes parents will say, well, when they'll ask me questions about homework, and it's hard for me to ask how much time. You've got to know your kid. So some little boy or girl can do 20 minutes and they're ready to do more. And then go ahead. And others, they can't squeak out 10. So then the conversation, how about tonight we do 11 minutes? You think we can do that? Yeah, I think I can do 11. You know it's far below the standard, maybe, but that really doesn't matter. There's no such thing as standards per grade level. It's a contradiction in terms. So everybody in a 4th grade class is the same mental capacity, same amount of stamina. It's ridiculous. It has to happen at home. And so you walk that line. No, honey, we have to do this. We have to get this done. We do a little bit more. And then, of course, and this is the last part, the satisfaction, and this I can appeal to all of you because you're all accomplished, the satisfaction of doing something very hard, very difficult, and succeeding. There are not many things that are more enjoyable. Better than a trip to Disney World. Those are all fun. But boy, that sense of, you know, man, I worked at this, I stuck with it, I persevered, and the sense of I got it, you know, whether it's a degree or just accomplishing something. This kind of pathway of I'm able to do it becomes addictive. And I'm talking in a positive sense. That's how we end up with somebody great. They do one thing, then they want to take on another. They're willing to take on another. Like sometimes children in high school, I've watched this many times when they've cultivated this. Wow, their grades are excellent. They're in after-school sports. They're in the band. They're in the choir. They're in the, and you wonder, how do you do everything? That's the way they are. They've experienced enough of this pressing through. Now, and this has a term, I'm trying to recall, not self-agency. You have a history. And when you have a history of achievement and success, you're willing to take on anything. So instead of having what is typically seen in teenagers, you know, would you like to do this? Oh, that sounds like a lot of work. Instead, you have young people saying, I want to do that. And then someone says, and would you also like to play sport? Yeah, I want to do that too. But that conflicts with choir. Well, I'll ask the choir director to see if I can do both. That's what happens. Because it's human, not merely something we taught them to do, but you've just led them to experience what it is to be human at its fullest capacity. And you know, there's a range of how far. But that sense of accomplishment and that sense of I can do it, Self-efficacy is the word I was looking for. It's self-efficacy. Means you have a history to do that. And of course, the opposite is true too. And this is where you run into problems. They get stubborn, and some of these little stinkers, ooh, man, you can just see them dig their heels in. I don't know who's worse, boys or girls. They're pretty, when they're stubborn, they're stubborn. And that's where the battle is. Yeah. And this is also where I can't tell you what to do. Nobody can tell you what to do. You only have to work under principles. I gotta get him through this. And I gotta lead him to that level of success. Knowing that's the pathway he'll learn. And to learn it by the stories that he's told. And each triumph then becomes something you can reference. Well, you remember last year when you couldn't memorize your tables of 5 or 10 tables of 8 and you did it? Or you didn't understand how to factor a quadratic, you did it. We stuck with it, you did it. And now they're building that story. You know, there's some, a lot of what we do here is based on some research by a man named Jerome Bruner, who was the leading scholar in child development in the last half of the 20th century. But he has this book called the Acts of Meaning, and just sort of synthesizes research over the last 100 years. People don't learn things because I tell you. I may tell you something, but you're sitting there interpreting it all. And it's the interpretation that you get. You may mimic for a test, but actually every one of us is translating what we hear, what we see, and incorporating it into the story of our life. Then we live by that story. So by having children go through positive experiences over and over again, that's a sense of I can do this, I know how to do this as you gradually build that up. So then come back to the real practical thing with these little guys. And I'm really kind of happy I have to be back in that 2nd grade class again, because they get defeated so easily. As soon as something is wrong, like this. Or we have to do, like the 2nd graders are memorizing their tables of 4. And it's just, as soon as they get one wrong, they just quit. This is too hard, Mr. Debelak. It's way too hard. So yes, I know. How about we just do 2 of them then? Just 4 times 2 and 4 times 3. How about just 2 of them? Then you do it. Look, you did it. No, but probably you couldn't do this one. We're going to do 4 times 4. We're going to add 1. You want to try it? Yeah. You want to try that? The momentum starts because I know they want to grow. So you're between this. I'm not going to let you go because before you graduate from here, you are going to know your tables of 4. That would be a shame to the school if we sent you off without knowing that. But there's you, and I think it's that knowing how strict to be. Maybe your home, you could be really tough with the kids. I've seen parents be really tough, and it works for them. Others are really tough, and it doesn't work. And it drives them the other way. So this is why you understand what's going on inside of the child, how they can move forward, and then there's your family and your dynamics with your son or daughter. And eventually, this is what I love to see, and I think this is a signature mark on the kids who leave Birchwood. They've got agency. The comments we get back from Hathaway Brown, from Hawken, from University School, St. Ignatius, St. Ed's, their comment is, can you send us more of these kids? Sometimes they're brilliant, which is good. Other times they're just average, an intellectual building, raw intellectual building. But they are great students, heading off in a very positive direction. That's what we think of them. We call these kids Birchwood graduates. You just have that outlook toward life. You want to try this and you want to try that, and you're not afraid of stuff. But that's the slow accumulation of. That's why it's our school's strict. I know it is, but that's the reason, is so that parents can help their children navigate it and build up this history, self-efficacy. So that's the picture. How's our time? Oh, we're okay. So we can pause if you want to grab some coffee or a donut.
I keep smiling over here because my husband is a military man. I'm a former educator, so we're both very, and sometimes we have to really come back and just, especially him. I do come back a lot, but he's he doesn't, and I have to nudge him, not in front of the children, like, you need to step back. We're not letting them go, but you need to step back and then reapproach, right? But I love what you said about that.
Yeah. Boy, and I could tell you so many stories on both ends of those extremes. One is, for whatever reason, cultural reasons, his experience reasons, it's just, look, that's what we got to do. My golly, you're going to do it. And sometimes that works, if that's what fits for your kid. Other times, though, it can just drive them away. And you see that in the teen years, not in these years when the children are little, but in the teen years. Because in the teen years, they're beginning to fight for their own identity. And so they want to escape your identity. Or the other side, he's pressured with your tables of 4. He feels very pressured. Okay, let him go. And then he'll just have a life of always escaping, always escaping. And that's why this is such a big job, is to help children understand that wrestling inside of themselves. Hi, come on in. A couple seats here, that's all right.
One of the questions I've been sort of grappling with is, my daughter, she's 7, so she's very young, especially in 2nd grade, but
she's very what?
Very young.
Yeah,
she's very young.
Yeah.
And she,
for the grade level?
For her grade level, yeah. I think it's towards the end of May. Her willingness to stretch herself and push herself at home, if I'm sitting there with her, sometimes physically holding her hand, is a lot higher than when she is sitting independently. And so that's something I've been very sort of curious about and trying to figure out where those lines are. It's one thing to do something when somebody is pushing you from behind, and it's another one to walk on your own, knowing that somebody's a few steps back or further back. And so we've been playing with that, but I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Well, there's 2 things. One, it's time. Keep doing it. Because you keep, even though you're insisting and you're pushing, whatever you feel, they're going through the experience of growing. They can measure it, they see it. They're making those steps of progress. The second part, this agency does not click in early. Most parents, like in the 5th or 6th, when they got 5th or 6th grade kids, I just want to take my hands off. I don't know how many times I've told parents, please don't. And then as soon as you take your hands off, these little stinkers do it whatever they want to do. So I usually will tell parents, 5th and 6th grade or above, say, oh fine, I'll take my hands off. But when you're done with homework tonight, I want to see it, and I want to see the quality. In other words, prove it to me. And until then, it's back to that, I'm going to be strict, and I'm going to be loving. Both things have to be there. But the time, I can assure you, the time is on our side. You can, whatever you're doing to nurture that, don't quit, push, keep at it. It's always on our side. I love teaching 8th grade for kids who've been here for all this time, to watch the improvement. Oh, it's like seeing miracles, and I mean it, miracles every single year. And then, like, we had one boy come back to visit us. He just graduated from St. Ignatius, and he came back to stop in. He and his group, and I told him this, so I'm not pouring mud on him. That had to be one of the wildest, worst groups of kids we've ever had. And I let him know that, but we were relentless. We were relentless. I don't know how many times I had to stay after school disciplining them or making them do their work, or we're not going to let you go. And then, of course, there's always the positive side. We love you. You did a great job. It's wonderful. To see the time, and that's what I'll often tell parents, we win. Why? Because time is on our side. And walking this thing of, we're not going to let you go, honey, but at the same time, you're still going to be my honey. The sweetness remains there. So you'll win.
And I think every kid is different. Like my older one, I don't remember checking her homework or doing homework with her when she was in 4th grade, because I had Hardy by then, and I was so busy with the younger one that I had no clue. With Harley right now, I have to make sure, he wrote his homework.
Yeah.
And I sit with him, he's just, he's just careless. But he's as smart as her. It's not like he's dumb or anything. It's just that he just doesn't focus. So I still have to pay attention. I'm like, when am I going to stop paying attention? Because by this time, the girl, I was not doing anything. I didn't even know what she was doing.
Yeah.
And just if I didn't hear anything from the teacher, it was, that's fine, I guess.
And I'll emphasize. Oh, I'm sorry. Why this work is hard as parents and as teachers. So what you've seen in the United States probably in the last 35 to 50 years is a gradual lowering of the standard. No homework. The standards for grade level has dropped and dropped and dropped. Why? Because it hurts to set standards. Not the kids. They'll get over that. It hurts us. I mean, how wonderful it would be if I could come here every day, teach for 45 minutes all my classes. You make it, you don't make it, I'm giving you a test in 6 weeks. That's it. That would be so easy. But once you have to work with the kids who's not doing your homework, okay, let me see your schedule. What are you doing at night? Or that's a mess. Let's redo that. Let me show you how to do. That's pressure. That's work. That's just hard work. So what has happened, in my opinion, with one of the things in the educational system, what you do is you just drop the expectations. Yeah. I mean, isn't that when you want your kids to clean the room and they won't do it? No matter how many times you tell them to clean the room, eventually you just say, I know, because I've raised 4 kids and I've got tons of grandkids. That's just the way it is. And now I'm glad my grandkids are a little bit afraid of coming to Papa Chuck's house. Because they always know you're not going to get away with anything.
No, we were talking about that with some of the schools and the choice that we picked here and what was out there. And the other day she made a comment, she goes, yeah, the one school had the no homework, kind of thought. And I just made a comment, I was like, how am I supposed to send my daughter to a school that doesn't allow homework or send homework when she goes to college? Because I expect she's going to college, there's going to be homework. Like, how do I build that from the beginning if it's not expected? She's going to go to college and be like, I show up for class. So, and I think we're in agreement to that. It's just, we got to reinforce.
Yeah. Next month, that'll be the topic too, is homework.
Awesome.
Comprehensive picture of why we do it, not just that we do it, but we have reasons behind it.
Yeah, I would say that, because I have, from a relationship, I have kids, and my daughter went to a school called SASA. She had homework every day. And my son went to public school, he didn't want to go to SASA, and there was no homework, right? And so you can see the difference today of the two of them. My daughter just excels, like she's 3.8, 3.9, just excelling. My son is just like, if he can just get by, and you can tell that huge difference, and he's just not prepared. He just doesn't have it, no matter what I do, it's not there. So, to me, homework it's such a need, it really is, so.
Yeah, high standards, homework. And that's why the value, I mean, you're here also too, because you see the work that they have to do, and then it's the involvement of the parents. I had a parent not too long ago, their daughter was having tons of problems not getting work done, it was done poorly. They'd come in later, and mom was helping them write papers, do the math, and I said, don't do that. You just, at the end of the night, you give the last 15 to 20 minutes to her, you bring all your work to me, I want to see the quality of it, I want to make sure it's all done, and then I want to email from your teachers that it was done the way they wanted it done. So that's all you need to do, 15 minutes. Don't put in hours helping them. Matter of fact, on the homework, and I'll bring this up when we talk about it, we really do not expect parents to help that much, only to make sure it's done. See, then we're the ones who can monitor. You'll just say, you couldn't do any of this. No problem, we'll adjust. But when parents help, we don't always know where the children are at. So I'd rather see a messy, sloppy, I want to see it turned in, and I want to see it done as good as possible. I'd like to see it messy and sloppy, if that's what they really did. Just so then I can say, no, you can't do that, or there's
and that's a really hard struggle for me as a teacher. I check him and I'm like, nope, we're redoing this. Erase that, fix this. It's really hard for me to not be the teacher.
Well, what I would say though on that, at the same time, what's the result? I mean, are you seeing them
The
growing?
truth is, he's growing and
Yeah.
he understands, and I'm not showing something that he didn't do. He did it.
Yeah.
I'm just guiding him,
And
like his
I wouldn't
teacher
be
would.
bothered by that.
Yeah. Okay.
It's so, after all these years, working with parents, I've seen parents who are just ruthless with their kids. Ruthless. They make everyone, my God, you do that to your kids? But they balanced it by the relationship, and man, those kids took off. I'm thinking little girl who's in Harvard right now. Her dad was so brutal, I just thought to myself, what are you gonna do to this kid? Well, the kid's in Harvard. And the older one went to Princeton and studied theoretical mathematics at Princeton.
Wow.
I thought, what happened? I would have thought you're going to crush them. No, and that's the personal dynamic, where you know it. And then others were just so casual about what they expected from their kid. I can think of one right now who's en route to West Point. One of the top recommendations from our district, heading to West Point. But for so many years that he could never write correctly, lost all his papers. It was just a constant mess. But the story, they keep hearing the same story. You have to work hard, you can't quit. And they're in an environment that keeps demanding of it. So going to your thing, I don't worry about that. If it's working for you as a teacher to be on top of it, then go with that. And there is a sense of happiness with the children when they're making progress. They're happy. Yes, they grumble when they have to work, but in general, when you're accomplishing things, you just feel good about yourself. It's the failure, or it's the indulgence in entertainments that have no value. Those are the things that just drain a person's enthusiasm for life. So be as strict as you want, but that's how I would monitor it. I was very strict with my kids. They all went here, except my oldest. I have an older adopted Cambodian daughter. But all my three younger ones went here, and we were very, very strict with them. And they all were highly accomplished. As long as you still maintain that loving piece, it just depends on the dynamic.
When you say you were very strict, can you give some examples?
Wow. Yes.
Put it out there.
You can just imagine the kids have to come home to our house. We just insisted. My wife and I started this school. One of the driving factors was in my church group that I was with for many years, I always was with young people, high school kids, all the way up through about 25 or so, working with those kids. And I saw the biggest problem was not drugs, it was not sex, it was they were going nowhere. No goals, no work habits, no work ethic. So they were just targets of every cheapening influence that was in society. And so when we started the school, all that was in my mind. And you stop it. You stop that teenage experience in the elementary school, primary and middle school, where they begin to have the habits of, that's not tasteful. When they get older, your kids are all, but I don't know what's going to, next 10 years, what kind of social media things are going to be out there. I do not envy you raising kids. They're going to taste those things. They're going to like those things. But if the habits of work and achievement go on again and again and again, then there's no limit. So I demanded from our kids, when they had to do their writing, I wanted to see excellent writing, and I tell them, do it again. And same thing with the reading. We created a rich reading environment at home, so they all became rich and enthusiastic readers. And we would just insist on it. How much TV, and now they tell us all the jokes, how they got away with stuff and we didn't know about it. All the TV they watched, all the candy they ate, all the trouble they got. Of course, now they're all grown and older, so we hear all these stories. We thought, I guess we didn't do that great of a job. But insisting always, you do excellent work. Whatever the teacher asked for, you accomplish what you asked, and then see if you can not ratchet it up a little bit. Always insisting your best. You do your best. And they're always trying to get out of it. We knew that. But you pull back and you nag again. I don't mind the word nagging, because that's how they learn. So we did it for sports. We did it for music. We did it for the academics at Birchwood. We just insisted.
Thank you.
I would be interested, I know this isn't an academic topic, but as a newer family, we came last year, which everything was kind of still shut down. I would be interested in a session to hear about the beginnings of Birchwood and your background, and just, there's a lot of families I think that are new and don't have that history.
That's a good point.
And I would love to hear all of that, just throwing that out there as a thought.
Oh, then my wife will have to sit in on it.
Yes, for sure, both of you, yeah.
I'm sure the reasons we started the school are the very things that are in your heart about your children.
I'm sure about it too.
I've always appreciated the strict Jewish families. I'm not the religion per se, but I always thought, how do you keep your faith through thousands of years of persecution? How did you do that? So there were things to learn from that. So we picked up a lot. We were very observant. Biographies informed a lot of what we wanted to see happen. Because biographies, you learn about how did people become great. With the 8th graders, we watch movies all year, 1 movie a week, all about great people. We watched Jackie Robinson's story. We're right in the middle of The Elephant Man. If you've never watched that, it's a great movie. John Hurt. So yeah, that's a good point. I think we'll do that.
Thank you. I would love that.
Time to get to work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us.